All right. One of the other things I talked about last time, which is a good time to bring this up again, I showed you these 3 books, okay? When I was in college, I had a sociology class, and then I took another one. Now, you're trying to get an education, you're paying for it, and your college professor tells you that Ford Motor Company built Hitler's tanks, and when the Allied bombers blew up the Ford Motor Company tank plant that Hitler had, Henry Ford personally repaid Hitler to rebuild those tank plants as quickly as possible. But it's an American company. If you don't believe me, let's go to this one. There's books like this, okay? Wall Street and the Rise of Hitler, okay? And it's pretty good size, and it's got a lot of references in it. This is by Anthony C. Sutton, talking about the seemingly impossibly treasonous idea that Wall Street itself, the British bankers, okay, actually created Hitler. And it gets weirder than that because Hitler is actually the illegitimate son of the British royalty. So if you look at the images of the king of Britain right before Hitler was born, he's got a very similar face to Hitler. And Kaiser Wilhelm was the guy's name, I believe. So Kaiser Wilhelm is another guy who also has, parentage of this. So Hitler was a Brit, and then they changed his name and they sent him over to Germany. But what's going on is you got both sides working against the middle here. And look at this, I got another one, as I said last time, by Charles Higham. This is called American Swastika. Okay, why would they have a book called American Swastika? Maybe it's because the Americans created the Nazis. Maybe it's because, as I was graded in my class, Boeing manufactured Hitler's bombers. They created them as passenger airliners in the US. They had a lot of seats in them. Then they send them to South America. They take all the seats out. They send them over to Africa, where they repaint them and they fit them out as bombers, and then they send them right over to Hitler. Hitler could not have been doing his war machine and destroying all of life in Europe if it wasn't for the American apparatus that was helping him with their logistics and their materials and all the raw materials we can dig up in America, shipping it over. It's total treason on an unimaginable scale. And then last but not least, folks, the third one, again, if you saw my last video, Trading with the Enemy, again by Charles Higham. And it says right here, the Nazi-American money plot from 1933 to 1949. What happened in 1933? America goes off of the gold standard, and they made it illegal for you to have gold. They literally went into people's safety deposit boxes, which you thought were safe, because it's locked up in the bank, right? And you got the one key, and you got to have your key, or else they can't get in there. No, they just went into the safe deposit box and took your gold. So that's why now all the alt-right people, right? Oh, you're alt-right. Ooh, you actually believe in dangerous conspiracy theories. Oh man, well wait a minute. This is not a conspiracy theory, dude. It's a college class. And I was graded upon my ability to know that American corporations financed Hitler. The whole thing was a sham. World War I and World War II. 90% of the guns they were using were made by the Remington Gun Company, which was owned by Samuel Bush, who was the father of George Bush Sr., right? The original Prescott Bush, right? So you got Samuel Bush. A lot of people don't know this. Samuel Bush was running the Remington Gun Company, which coincidentally, this is where it gets fun, right? The conspiracy theory is fun. Because, oh, you're crazy. And you can laugh if you want to, but this is real, okay? And at some point, it's going to matter. It's going to matter. People are going to pay attention to this, especially now, right? You might have laughed before. You might have been too uncomfortable, but now it's all this buggy, germy stuff when you go outside. It's not fun. It's not cool. It's scary. People are freaking out. This is not a random thing. It's not an accident that this happened. It is an intentional attempt to scare people. Well, $1 trillion a day are going to the too big to fail banks. It's a much bigger bailout than the TARP bailout in 2008, and it's much faster. And they're doing it fast before you realize that this thing is not as serious as they're making it out to be. The majority of everybody who dies from this thing is over 70 years old. You have to have a compromised immune system, and more than likely you already have lung damage, such as if you're an extreme smoker. And that's also, 80% men and 5 times more likely if you're an Asian. That's all true. So all of these numbers about alleged death rates, if you're not in an Asian country, they're 5 times too high. Based on the scientific data from the Chinese, they've already studied this thing and published. Okay, this is not a conspiracy theory. You have China, you have Russia, you have Iran already accusing this of being a bioengineered attack. And all of the evidence is pointing in that direction. As I said, we have this guy, Charles Lieber, who was arrested by the Department of Justice around January 21st or so, as well as 2 Chinese nationals, one of whom was smuggling, as I said, 21 vials in his sock, trying to get through the airport, of a brown liquid with biological material, where he had taken something that his friend was working on and replicated it for personal use to bring it into Wuhan, which is where he was going. We're going to get back to that, but this is already public. It's in the description on this video, so you can go click on that and read it. And I want you to write articles about this, okay? I can't do it all. And I want you to steal my work, but please give credit, if you feel so inclined. It helps us. But anyway, Deep State, there it is. I showed you 3 books. I was graded on this in college. They're studying whether or not this world is being run by some secret industrialist cabal, and the answer is absolutely yes. And these people created World War I, World War II. They own both sides. This is called problem, reaction, solution, right? They create the problem, then they have a reaction, and then they offer you the solution. So the problem in this case would be, oh my God, there's a big pandemic. The reaction is, oh my God, there's a big pandemic. The solution is, hey, let's give the banks, the too big to fail banks, $1 trillion a day. Let's just slip that under the table while nobody's looking, before everybody's so happy that they realize, oh, this isn't really as bad as we thought, which is going to happen. Okay, do not, please, fall for the authoritative media. If you haven't figured out yet that the mainstream media is totally compromised, if you haven't paid attention to James O'Keefe, to Veritas, if you're not seeing the interconnectedness of this thing, then you just got to make a tinfoil hat. You got Reynolds wrap right in the kitchen, dude. Go in there, pull off a sheet, fold it up, and wear it. And then you'll start to have visions coming into your head. I'm telling you, it works. We have taken a lot of lumps over the years. We've taken a lot of abuse for being truthers, for having this information available to you. I don't like it, but it's part of the job, I guess. Public ridicule, public humiliation. It's really sad. But I want to explode a lot of myths here, and I want to really get to the core of what this thing is, because these people, the deep state folks, this is real. So let's go back to that thing I was saying about Samuel Bush. Samuel Bush, Prescott Bush's father, owned the Remington Gun Company pretty quietly, and they were making the money on 90% of all the gun sales to both sides of World War I. Goes to the Bush family. Then you have Prescott Bush, who is Samuel Bush's son. Prescott Bush is George Herbert Walker Bush's father, and he was president of the United States after Reagan. He was vice president during Reagan. Prescott Bush was Hitler's banker. That's officially known, common public information, nothing unusual, folks. It's commonly known that Prescott was, Prescott was Hitler's banker. Now, there's a lot more that we could do with that, but the point I want to get you familiar with is the idea, at least in principle, that this deep state, these oily men, and oily because they're literally oil men, right? They're making money on oil. They took us off of the gold standard. They took us off of our currency being based upon collateral, something that's physically tangible that you can get your hands on, right? And they put it into the magic Babylonian money printing press, where you print money out of thin air. When the Federal Reserve was started in 1913, the dollar had 99% more purchasing value than it does right now, and that was before this whole alleged Great Depression happened. I don't think the economy is going to be in tatters for very long. We're looking at an economic reset. The other countries involved in that economic reset already signed off on it. If you remember, if you go back and watch my Pete Peterson video, we had another insider named Woody. That was a code name. And I had also given him the code name Ward in the video. I wasn't sure if I could use Woody. I could. But on the same day that my insider Pete Peterson was found dead, he died actually of an accidental injection at the nursing home he was at. On the same day, our friend Woody was found face down, dead in his house, the day after he had signed off on the new financial system with the Chinese Dragon family, which is this ancient lineage that's in China where they have an enormous amount of gold in private collections, much more than the gold that's on the books or on ledger. So that's another thing I've talked about for a long time. The official gold in the world is valuable because it's scarce. How scarce? All of the gold in the world allegedly would fit into one Olympic-sized swimming pool. But if you take the off-ledger gold that the Asians have and you add that in, it now becomes 13.5 Olympic-sized swimming pools worth of gold. So one of the things that happened, and I talked about this in Financial Tyranny, is that the Asians had way the hell more gold than this cabal. So the cabal had to do a whole lot of stuff to be able to take over the world, which they tried to do to get their New World Order. Their plan is for everybody to be on their knees, begging for salvation, and then they come and they rescue you, but it comes at an incredibly steep cost. We'll get into that a bit later. So the Asians had a lot more gold than the cabal did. So what did they do? They had this guy back in 1776 named Adam Smith write a book called On the Wealth of Nations, and it's got a bigger title than that, but that's the short version. And he basically said that gold is bad because he gave a whole bunch of reasons. He said if your country has gold in its central bank, you're vulnerable to invasion. Another country could come in, steal all your gold, and now you're in an economic depression. Everybody's starving, and the other country is richer. And if you don't have a strong enough military, then you can't defend yourself. So that's one of the excuses. Another excuse that they had was gold has a finite amount, but population keeps increasing, which means as there's more people, they need to spend more money, and therefore there's still the same amount of gold, but you have more people that need to use it. So gold has what? Inflation. Gold becomes more and more and more expensive. It hyperinflates, and then that also could destroy the economy. So they made all these arguments for why, we shouldn't use gold at all. Now secretly, after World War I, there was a deep state influenced meeting of all the major countries in the world in which they were told, we got to abolish gold, but people aren't going to like it, so we got to do it quietly. And the other countries reluctantly agreed to this plan. This meeting happened somewhere in around 1921 or 19